Okay, so shalom, everyone. Here we are with our brother Jake Grant. So it's a blessing to be here in Virtual House Church once again. Shalom, brother. How are you doing?
Shabbat shalom. Doing well. How are you, Juan?
Doing good, brother. So it's so nice to be in this Shabbat, continue with the cycle of Second Samuel. And it's been a blessing for me. I have been checking time to time the chat and the comments. I think our brothers and sisters out there that are enjoying this cycle that we decided to do. And I really hope that today is going to be a new blessing, you know?
Yeah, me too.
So, as we always do, we want to invite all of you to visit the Virtual House Church website. And let me put it here in the screen. So let me put over here. Is to invite all of you to go Virtual House website, just to remember to everyone that the Virtual House Church Virtual House Church, started back on 2012 as part of the obedience of Rob and Sheila Esquiva that they put this platform together. And, they have been doing these cycles of study of Torah throughout the years. And this has been a blessing to all of us. Remembering that obedience is so important, and because of obedience, we are here enjoying Virtual House Church up until today. So invite you to go to the Virtual House Church website to check all the information over there. There's so plenty of information that Rob was able to collect through all the years, different studies about the different cycles of Torah, and also many other important information that Yahuwah was guiding him to provide to his people in these times. That is important to visit the site, to share this information with others, and to shine the light of Yahuwah. If you want to go to the new page of Virtual House Church, and you are hearing this previous version, it's just a matter for you to click in this icon over here. You click there, and you will be directed to the new face and look and feel of Virtual House Church website with the logo. That's the current logo of Virtual House Church. You will find exactly the same information over here. And again, the idea of sharing this with you all is to remind you that there are plenty of studies and much information over there that is helping us in this way of Yahuwah, is helping us to continue on searching for the truth and to continue seeking the face of Yahuwah, to allow him to teach us his ways. And, if you're wondering, because I have seen some comments as well last week, I think, who's running basically this channel in YouTube, it's basically just for you to know that Sheila decided to continue this work. And this is something that should be a blessing to all of us, that here we are continuing with Virtual House Church with the intention of continue that obedience from Rob's heart to delivering the message of the word of Yahuwah to others. And in these times of difficulties and this crazy world that we are living today, is so much needed, that we need to study the word of Yahuwah. And what a better way to do it is by continue Virtual House Church and to continue studying his word. So let me stop this here for a minute. So here we are again, and let's bring our brother Jake here to the screen once again. So that's true, Jake, I always try to reinforce this message and to remember that what Yahuwah did through Rob has been a blessing to all of us here. We are, just continue Virtual House Church in a humble way. And because, no matter that we are in front of the screen, in these platforms, what really matters is the intention of Yahuwah is to bring his truth, his word to the people. And we are just students like everybody that is joining us week by week. We are not pastors, we are not teachers, we are just students like everybody else. We have the desire of our heart, in the same way that Rob had the desire of his heart, to share the journey, to share the insights to share our heart, to Yahuwah in each one of the studies. So, Jake, my brother, once again, thank you for joining me today. I really hope we are going to have a blessed study.
Yeah, me too. I know Rob touched so many people's lives by just being that humble student himself, and that's what we're trying to continue here. Is we're just trying to learn right along with all of you guys as we share a love for the Word, and it's so valuable to study through it together. And as you guys join the chat and you communicate in the comments and in the chat, we want to hear your input as well, because as we study through this, there's some great revelations that the Most High can reveal to us that are buried in His Word. And it's the glory of kings to search out a matter, right? And so there's so many aspects of Scripture that I know we went through the Torah portion cycles so many years, and Rob was ready to get into the rest of the Scripture. So that's what we're doing now. And I'm just excited to be a part of this with you, Juan, and yeah, I'm just very grateful to be here.
Really good. Thank you, brother. And actually, last week I was sharing with everybody that you have been doing a fantastic job trying to get additional music to the Virtual House Church. And I have the privilege to share the first song of this amazing couple from the Left and Right Ministries. I didn't play the entire music. I know that you prepared the half and half. So if you want, I have it prepared here. We can go and share the second music that was part of in part one. And actually, what we should do? It was so amazing. The first one, maybe we can play it all. I know that you have prepared everything here in StreamYard, so feel free, my brother.
Yeah, do you want me to go ahead and play those? I know this version, we have lyrics for everyone, so we can all learn these songs, and they're really set apart music because they're using the name. They're calling for Israel to come back, and it's great. And so I'd love to play that for you guys.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. This is Lyndon and Ruth, and they made this worship set for us, so I'm really excited to share with everyone. So here we go.
Shabbat Shalom, Virtual House Church. It is so good to be here to worship with you. I'm Lyndon Mitchell, and this is my wife, Ruth Mitchell. We are Left and Right Ministries, and we're just so thankful to be able to worship with you. The first song we're going to sing is called O Yisrael, and it's really that call from Yah, the call from Yahuwah, saying, O Yisrael, turn to me, bow before me, and lay down your idols. And I think that is our absolute call as people who've been grafted in by the blood of the Messiah into Israel. We've been given that grace and mercy to be called His chosen people, so we should turn to Him and worship Him. That's what the song's all about. If you know it, sing along with us. 2, 3, 4. was and is to come. We praise the El of Yaakov, who gave his one and only Son to make us free and forgiven. Oh, we praise the El of Yaakov. Hallelujah. Amen. The next song we're going to sing is called Song of the Lamb. While I tune my guitar here, I just want to share a few things. Revelation 15 is where we find the Song of the Lamb. It says that they will sing the song of Moshe, the song of Moses, and the song of the Lamb. And then it declares what the song of the Lamb is. And it's not what we would expect the Song of the Lamb to be. It's actually, about the Lamb proclaiming the Father. When we think about the Song of Moshe, the Song of Moses, which is actually found in Exodus 15, coincidence, I think not. There is a correlation there, I'm pretty sure. But in Exodus 15, we see the Song of Moses, Song of Moshe. And that song is not actually about Moses, but it says it's the Song of Moses, right? It's about the deliverance that came from Egypt. That when the Israelites came out of Egypt, he delivered them, Yah delivered them. And that's what it's proclaiming. The horse and its rider have been thrown into the sea. And in this song, the Song of the Lamb, it's not necessarily about the Lamb. It's about the Father and the Lamb proclaiming the Father, giving esteem to him, and saying that all the nations will come and bow and worship before him. That's what the song's about, the Song of the Lamb. So if you have, the NASB translation is what I used for this one. Revelation 15, word for word, this is the Song of the Lamb. justified in the Son of Yah, believe and keep his commands. Sing the song of Moshe and the song of the Lamb. Justified in the Son of Yah, believe and keep his commands. Sing the song of Moshe and the song of the Lamb. Justified in the Son of God, believe and keep his commands. Sing the song of Moshe, the song of the Lamb. Justified in the Son of God, believe and keep his commands. For you alone are holy, holy, oh Yahweh. For all the nations will come to worship before you. For you alone are holy, yes you are holy, oh Yahweh. For all the nations will come and worship before you. Oh, for you alone are holy, yes you are holy, oh Yahweh. For all the nations will come to worship before you, yeah. For you alone are holy, yes you are holy, oh Yahweh. For all the nations will come to worship before you. For your righteous acts been revealed. For your righteous acts have been revealed. Oh, for your righteous acts have been revealed. Praise Yah. Praise Yah. Hallelujah.
So this next song we're going to sing is Psalm 1, and the Hallelujah Scriptures translation reads, Baruch is the man who shall not walk in the counsel of the wicked, and shall not stand in the path of sinners, and shall not sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, and he meditates in his Torah day and night. For he shall be as a tree planted by the rivers of water, that yields its fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither, and whatever he does prospers.
Psalm 1. The most simple but most profound wisdom. I just feel like it is the beginning of understanding the ways of Yah. If you follow in his ways, you'll be blessed. And if you do not, you'll be like the chaff, blown, tossed by the wind, and cast off forever. So let us follow in his ways and worship him. is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor does he stand in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah, and on his ways he meditates day and night. He meditates day and night. He'll be like a tree firmly planted by streams of living water, which yields a seed in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in all he does he prospers, 'cause his delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah, and on his ways he meditates day and night. He meditates day and night. The wicked are not so. They are like the chaff which the wind blows away. And therefore the wicked shall not rise in the judgment, nor the sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For Yahuwah knows the way of the righteous. For Yahuwah knows the way of the righteous. For Yahuwah knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. And meditate day and night. Sing, we'll meditate. We'll meditate day and night. We'll meditate day and night. Shabbat Shalom.
Wow, that was awesome. You can feel the spirit of this two beautiful brother and sister, what they can give us through the song. So, Jake, you want to lead us in a prayer before we initiate the study?
Yeah, sounds good. All right, everybody, let's come before the Most High. And Abba, Father, thank you for your Shabbat. Thank you for all you've given us in your word, all the wisdom that we can learn from it. Father, bless this study. Bless the Virtual House Church family and your people scattered across the earth, Father, and help reveal to them your will for their lives, for our lives, Father. Help us learn these lessons in the Scripture. Help this study, Father, and I ask this in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. So today we are studying chapter 17 and chapter 18 of the Second Samuel. And, this is the continuation of the story of Absalom and David. And, I think basically we're going to, descending the story of Absalom here in chapter 18. And I was sharing last week, Jake, is that for me it's very interesting and the way that this is happening. Even the people of Yahuwah was saying last week, if I remember well, the people of Israel was forsaking David, and they decided to go with the one that was presenting himself to the people as the new king. And somehow how this is happening to us most of the time in this way, that we put our eyes in what we see instead of putting our eyes in the anointed one, in this case, Yahushua HaMashiach. And there was another thing, and actually I do believe in this chapter, in this portion somehow is a continuation of that foreshadow, is how Absalom is a kind of foreshadow of the anti-Mashiach, the Antichrist. In this case, the anointed one, David, going into the wilderness, a kind of representation of us, as is written in the book of Revelation, of the woman going into the wilderness. And this one presenting himself as part of the family, was part of the families, was part of Israel, but was presenting himself as the rightful king, the one trying to take the throne. Even presenting himself last week as he was going to serve Yahuwah, to pay the vows in Hebron, but what he was doing was exactly the opposite, just to have this conspiracy and trying to take the throne and convincing all the people. That's something that he was doing for so long. And, I think it's a perfect foreshadow based on what we saw last week of the Antichrist and what he's bringing to our days. So we will see now in chapter 17 and 18 this continuation of the story, and how this picture, this foreshadow, is also seen here. So, brother, I don't know if you have any comments and if you want to start with your insights.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to add in relation to how, Absalom does seem to parallel the Antichrist is, I don't know if you covered this last week, but, whenever, he was inviting the people in, and those who were like seeking judgment, he's like, if I was king, I would do this and this. And then he was kissing the people that would pay homage to him. It reminds me of what's written in Daniel 11:32 about this Antichrist figure. And it says, with flatteries, he will corrupt those who violate the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him, in Daniel 11:32. And it continues on, those with insight will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by sword or flame, or by captured or plundered. So, anyways, it makes me think of this same situation with Absalom and David, and it does make me wonder. I mean, there will be a time when Yeshua and the Antichrist will be clashing, and people will have to choose one or the other, because there's an instance where he comes to make war with the Antichrist. And so I know, the timeline in terms of the Book of Revelation is there's a lot of opinions on how it plays out, but I know guys like Steve Mutria talks about how the Antichrist will gather the armies of the earth to come up to fight against the Mashiach and the bride or the church that's been gathered together to him. And that's when he goes out and, lays waste to the Antichrist army. And so there looks like a period of time here where both are on earth. Like, this is the parallel here with David and Absalom, that both are kind of there, and the choice has to be made between the real king and the false king. And it makes me wonder if this again is a parallel to what we'll see in the Book of Revelation, that we will all have this choice, and if we make it to those days, to discern between the true and the false, and the one who's persuading by flatteries, and the one who is leading the bride into the wilderness, right? As is reflected in Ezekiel chapter 20, which says, I will bring them into the wilderness and plead with them face to face, as I did with their fathers when I brought them out of Egypt. And I'll purge the rebels out from among you. And this is a big aspect of this story, is there were two counselors. There was the righteous counselor and the wicked counselor. And it's just very interesting. I wonder if that's tied or parallel any to the witnesses and the false prophet, how they balance out. And I'm not trying to get too, spread across trying to make correlations, but that's why we like to study through these things, because we know when the Messiah comes back, he comes back as the conquering king, the Messiah ben David. And that's why, there could be prophetic parallels that we're drawing out of this stuff. But that's just the one thing that I wanted to share, that verse. I'm sure you probably were covering that last week, or when you were talking about the Antichrist, but if not, I wanted to read it.
No, it's important what you're bringing. I think we tackle a little bit of what you said, but you are bringing additional things about the flatteries. And while I was listening to you, I just remember that in the portion last week, beside the flatteries, he was also trying to provide judgment to the people when he was sitting in the gates of the people, and in the gate of the city, and the people from Israel were coming to seek the king for judgment. He was providing judgment. So that's going along to what you said, Jake. In one moment, I do believe the Antichrist will present himself as a king, as we know, but he will provide judgment, laws. And actually, you mentioned also what is written in Daniel. It says that he will try to change the laws and the times. And I know that there are multiple interpretations to that, things that have happened in the past and so on. But if we look at it in that way, this coming Antichrist, he will try to provide judgment to the people. And that's why we need to be so attentive to understand, and this is the time for us to learn, the right rulings, the judgments of in the word of Yahuwah, because in one moment it will come this person with his own right rulings, and as you properly said, Jake, is going to be the time for us to decide if we are listening to this guy, that maybe he's going to present a judgment so similar to what we learn from the word of Yahuwah, but in the same way that the serpent was somehow telling Eve in the garden, have truth. This guy will come exactly the same way that Absalom was coming to the people. And then that's why, when the Yahushua was saying that for the sake of the chosen one, the days are going to be shortened in order not to lose them, is because these guys will come with this have truth, that even the chosen one can be deceived. And that's why it's so important that we are prepared for the time that we will need to make those difficult decisions. And the only way to make those difficult decisions, to have a good decision, is knowing now what's the righteous judgment from the Elohim. So, yeah, many parallels, my brother, many parallels.
All right.
So, yeah, you want to, maybe we can go as we have done in the past, and let's go and read the chapters, and let's see what is bringing to the table. You want to put it on your screen?
Yeah, I will.
So let's go through the chapter 17, and then it's only 2 chapters, and then let's see what we have here. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start reading, and I'll pause if there's something interesting maybe we can discuss. And of course, if anybody in the chat has any interesting comments, please feel free to send them over and share, and we'll try to look through those as well.
That's great.
All right. 2 Samuel chapter 17. Moreover, Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Let me choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David tonight. I will come upon him while he is weary and discouraged, and throw him into a panic. And all the people who are with him will flee. I will strike down only the king, and I will bring all the people back to you, as a bride comes home to her husband." And that's an interesting language use there for what you were mentioning with the bride fleeing to the wilderness. All right.
Yeah.
You seek the life of only one man, and all the people will be at peace. And the advice seemed right in the eyes of Absalom and all the elders of Israel. Then Absalom said, "Call Hushai the Archite also, and let us hear what he has to say." And then Hushai came to Absalom, and Absalom said to him, Thus has Ahithophel spoken. Shall we do as he says? If not, you speak. Then Hushai said to Absalom, "This time the counsel that Ahithophel has given is not good." Hushai said, "You know that your father and his men are mighty men, and that they are enraged like a bear robbed of her cubs in the field. Besides, your father is expert in war. He will not spend the night with the people. Behold, even now he has hidden himself in one of the pits or in some other place. And as soon as some of the people fall at the first attack, whoever hears it will say, 'There has been a slaughter among the people who follow Absalom.' Then even the valiant men, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, will utterly melt with fear. For all Israel knows that your father is a mighty man, and that those who are with him are valiant men. But my counsel is that all Israel be gathered to you from Dan to Beersheba, as the sand by the sea for a multitude." This is some interesting parallel language that, when the Antichrist comes up against the Mashiach, that they're gathered as the sands of the sea, right? So, anyways,
and not only that, Jake, this is interesting because in the first council he got, there were not everybody going to the war, to the battle. It was just a specific number of people, and actually, this is not written that he himself, Absalom, was going to go with those. With that group, but in the second council is basically gather everybody, and even you yourself is written you have to go as well. So the parallel to the word in Armageddon is amazing for me.
Wow. Yeah, if he had followed the first counselor's wisdom, he probably would have gotten away with defeating David and the people. But it's all was set up by the Most High and by the wisdom of Hushai. So we shall come upon him in some place where he is to be found, and we shall light upon him as dew falls on the ground, and of him and all the men with him, not one will be left. And if he withdraws into a city, then all Israel will bring ropes to that city, and we shall drag it into the valley, until not even a pebble is to be found there. And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, "The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord had ordained to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, so that the Lord might bring harm upon Absalom." So just
it said all.
we have throughout the scriptures an interesting recurring pattern of the good and the bad counselors. And of course, we're going to find the son of Solomon, also Rehoboam, had good and bad counselors, which led to the eventual split of Israel as a nation into the northern and the southern house. And so it just is kind of maybe a lesson for us that in our circles, we should always have counselors, and to kind of weigh out the options, and first of all, to not have a wicked heart because you're going to follow the bad counsel. But at the same time, I think there's a pattern here throughout the scriptures that men of authority, men in position, men with great decisions would seek out counsel. And, of course, first our counsel should be seeking the will of the Most High, as Joshua's learned through his wars, that when they didn't seek first what the Most High wanted, then it would often lead them to defeat. But also, like, having these men around, men of wisdom, is similar to the pattern we see in a church congregation of having elders, having people that have wisdom to then sow into your life and help you make important decisions. And of course, in this situation, it didn't work out for Absalom because Yah was against his plans. But anyways, I just wanted to point the interesting system of counselors throughout the scripture that always lead to either good or bad things.
That's a good point, Jake. And actually, sometimes we are so focused in ourselves and trying to find out what to do in certain situations that we have this pattern that you have highlighting, and it's good. Sometimes we need to find the advice. Always, trying to. It wasn't in this case because Absalom was doing something totally different. But when we get the counsel, you have to always seek the Ruach to see if the counsel that we are getting is aligned to what is the will of Yahuwah. One additional point that I see here that is important, because the whole situation is a situation of distress, persecution, and so on. They were trying to take the throne again on this situation, and thinking on what we are living today, and also thinking in the Great Tribulation period of time. That we also see this pattern happening. Yahuwah is always keeping part of his people throughout these situations. And he will do his will through that people. In this case, it was Hushai, the one that David, if we go to the previous portion, David was telling Hushai to stay in order to be his ears. But in this case, no matter that was David was telling him to stay, we see that Yahuwah was giving this wisdom to Hushai in order to establish his desire, his will. So what's speaking to me in this case is that even though that we are going through difficulties, even though that we are going through persecution, that is the scenario as well, Yahuwah will raise up people to help us and to do his will. Last week we were mentioning as well, and then somehow it's a representation of Hushai and also the priests. It's about the remnant. Yahuwah will always keep a remnant of his people, even though that there are other people in authority. And I was remembering the situation of Babylon with Daniel and his friends, that they were under the authority of a king, that the Yahuwah decided to happen in this way. But this was a remnant that they were deciding to keep the way of Yahuwah, no matter what was happening around them. And I see the same pattern here, and should speak to us on what we are living today, that I think in our days, Jake, is more than visible about the difference of us, that we have decided to continue in a different way, in different path of life, compared to what's happening in society. And that will continue increasing and increasing. So that's why our hope is that Yahuwah is always there. And he did it in this case of a persecution of David. It was the King David. It wasn't anybody else. It's an important figure in the scripture that he was under persecution of his own son, but Yahuwah put these people on the way in order to do his will. So if he did it with David, he's going to do it with us as well.
Yeah, it definitely made me think of the same situation with Hushai and Daniel and Mordecai in the story of Esther.
Yeah.
There always seems to be somebody that he has strategically placed to then have kind of a voice of wisdom, a voice of truth in those upper echelons. And so very, it's interesting. It makes me think that, while Daniel was writing prophetic scriptures regarding the future, end times and the Antichrist, he was also aware of these stories in those circumstances. So maybe this is also something that Daniel was able to see for further parallels and playing out in terms of, because he was writing prophetically about the end times and the coming of the Son of Man and the second coming, and also he knew these stories of Hushai the counselor and Absalom the false king, and so it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Where were we? Here in
verse 15.
15. Okay.
Yes.
Then Hushai said to Zadok and Abiathar the priests, "Thus and so did Ahithophel counsel Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus so have I counseled. Now therefore send quickly and tell David, do not stay tonight as the fords of the wilderness, but by all means pass over, lest the king and all the people who are with him be swallowed up." Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz were waiting in Rogel. One quick comment is, in the previous study of chapters 15 and 16, is it not interesting how the sons of Zadok and Abiathar are always referred to as, and Zadok's two sons, Jonathan and Ahimaaz, the son of Abiathar. Like, it was a really interesting way that they were lumped together in the previous chapter. I don't know if you noticed some of that language, but they were referred to the two sons of Zadok, and then but it seems to be like one of the, like Jonathan was Zadok's son and Ahimaaz is Abiathar's son. But it was just very interesting. I wonder if there's something significant there with the two sons, and
it could be. I noticed the word in Jake last week, and yes,
interesting.
The intention is like I mentioned that there are some of Zadok, but then it says that one of them should be from Abiathar. Yeah, I wonder in the same. Maybe there's something more over there.
All right. Now, Jonathan and Ahimaaz were waiting at Rogel. A female servant was to go and tell them, and they were to go tell King David, for they were not to be seen entering the city. But a young man saw them and told Absalom. So both of them went away quickly and came to the house of a man at Barim, who had a well in his courtyard, and they went down into it. And the woman took and spread a covering over the well's mouth and scattered grain on it, and nothing was known of it. Then Absalom's servants came to the woman at the house, and they said, "Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" And the woman said to them, "They have gone over the brook of water." And when they had sought and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. And after they had gone, the men came up out of the well and went and told King David. And they said to David, "Arise and go quickly over the water, for thus and so have Ahithophel counseled against you." Then David arose and all the people who were with him, and they crossed the Jordan by daybreak. Not one was left who had not crossed the Jordan. Then Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, and he saddled his donkey and went off home to his own city, and he set his house in order and hanged himself. And he died and was buried in the tomb of his father. This is very reminiscent of the situation, of course, with Judas Iscariot. And I can't help but to wonder if hanging himself, as was mistranslated in the gospel account, they said that Judas hanged himself, but we learn through further study that the colloquialism, the word language of being hanging himself is actually more likely to be him like stabbing himself with a sword. And that's how likely that Judas killed himself, the betrayer, right? And so I wonder
Interesting.
if it's a similar, maybe not mistranslation, but a similar aspect here of hanging himself. Because this is, if you think about it, it's the same way, for example, King Saul killed himself when he, thrust himself through with his sword.
Yeah.
It's very likely the way that Judas Iscariot also took his own life. And it makes me wonder if these customs were not somehow eventually passed down and through migration. One of the reasons,
Yeah.
perhaps, like Japan
Japan.
practices the
Yeah.
same sabuku practice of stabbing themselves in an
Stabbing
honor
themselves.
killing. So I wonder if there's a pattern here that we can see that not only happened anciently with Ahithophel, but happened with Judas Iscariot and his, killing himself because of honor and him being a traitor. And then, maybe the Japanese inherited this from the ancient people of Israel.
Tradition. Yeah, I was wondering the same. And actually, I think there is a verse in the next chapter 18 about being devoured by the sword that somehow is connected, being killed or being taking your life with the sword. In this case, it makes total sense. What we'll see next chapter. And one thing, Jake, before I forget, is that the whole story about these two Kohanim, these two priests, and the woman is so similar to what we were reading in the book of Joshua with Rahab and the two spies. That she was hiding those two guys because everybody, the servants of the city, were persecuting them. So these patterns are so interesting. Could it be that maybe these two priests are a representation of the two houses of Israel being persecuted? And David, we know that David was taking the people living in Jerusalem out, running away from the persecution. But maybe that's representing the Jerusalem only. But these two guys that were persecuted because they were bringing news to the king, representing the two houses of Israel in the same way that was in the story of in the book of Joshua. I don't know, too many patterns that are so similar that I think there is something more profound, more deep that it should help us for in preparation to what's coming.
Yeah, there's definitely significant ties with the two priests, and perhaps even a parallel with the two witnesses, because even David later, he calls Zadok, "Are you not a seer? Are you not somebody who is prophetic?" And then of course these are the two sons who come as witnesses to warn, and perhaps there's even something we can draw out of this as the two witnesses warning that caused the bride to then flee into the wilderness. And so anyways, I don't know, I don't want to go too far in just speculation, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, for sure it is.
All right, so then Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed. I think that's an interesting reason to have gone and slain himself. First of all, is it's like it shows the honor culture that is definitely still not around today. I mean, if you were a counselor to a president or something, and you were so distraught that your counsel wasn't followed, then it's definitely a different world, but very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Then David came to Mahanaim, and Absalom crossed the Jordan with all the men of Israel. Now Absalom had set Amasa over the army instead of Joab, and Amasa was the son of a man named Ithra the Ishmaelite, who had married Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, the sister of Zeruiah, Joab's mother. And Israel and Absalom encamped in the land of Gilead. So that's interesting that Ishmaelite captain of the army of Absalom. I know there's a lot of thoughts of how the Ishmaelite descendants or the Arab nations will have a very
Mhm.
significant role in the end times. And we already see interesting things like with um, beheadings in the Middle East of Christians, and it's interesting that this Ishmaelite was put over the army, but then you have because we have interesting language in the scriptures that associates the Antichrist with I'm spacing on the word, he's called the I'm spacing on the word.
Okay.
Well,
Are you talking about from the Muslim side? They're calling it the Mahdi.
Yeah, the Mahdi.
Yes.
I'm completely spacing on the word, but anyways, there are interesting parallels with just the fact that Amasa and being an Ishmaelite over the armies that come to fight against David. And when David came to Mahanaim, Shobi, the son of Nakash from Rabbah of the Ammonites, and Makir, the son of Amiel from Debar, and Barzillai, the Gileadite from Rogelim, brought beds, basins, and earthen vessels, wheat, barley, flour, parched grain, beans, and lentils, honey and curds, and sheep and cheese from the herd, for David and the people with him to eat. For they said, the people are hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness.
Wow.
Throughout this stay in the wilderness is a consistent pattern. And then if you wanted to read also, chapter 18, but just the consistent pattern of the people are feasting in the wilderness. Yeah. If you notice the situation there, and even before, I don't know if it's chapter 18 or but whenever the servant brings donkeys and bread and all these things to feed David when he flees to the Mount of Olives, there's just a consistent feasting happening in the wilderness. So it's very interesting.
It's interesting. And not only that, and actually I think what you are remembering, TJ, was before. It was actually the servant of Mephibosheth. It was David put in charge of the Mephibosheth land.
Ziba.
He was the one coming out and bringing. Yes. So what's amazing again, and this is our hope as well, is that is the provision coming from the Yahuwah. In this case, they were under the persecution, but they were provided with food. Even food in order to keep their heart feasting, as you said. They were weary, they were being persecuted, but the Yahuwah was providing for them in order not to feel so. And I think that's amazing. And most probably, what I feel, I haven't gone through the details, but I most probably believe there is a significance on the different things that they're bringing to David. They're talking about wheat, barley, flour, and then many things that most probably has a more significant meaning in this type of a situation. That will require more study, but I think it's not because of the specific. It's because of something that they brought this specific food. Most probably there's a meaning behind. Let's go and read the chapter 18, because I think it's it's something very interesting coming as well in this chapter. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, just before you get into chapter 18, in relation to the significance of the different grains and what they represent and the different callings out of people throughout the year and the parallels with the feast, isn't it interesting that the two priests were hid underneath wheat berries?
Yeah.
So, if there is a prophetic parallel with certain times and the maybe these are signifiers in the story that the Most High is placed there to help people that seek out what is the deeper meaning behind these stories that we can apply. That it's significant that those who were hidden were those hiding under wheat berries in the well, and not to mentioned, how Yeshua refers to him as, when he's talking to the woman at the well. There's some interesting things there of those who keep the commandments and believe in Yeshua, and what wheat represents, of those who bow to the commandments versus the tares that stand up in pride. Anyways, I just wanted to bounce off your idea there of what could be the significance of the various grains and things that were brought or mentioned in the story.
And also the water, because they were being hidden in a well. And actually, they were telling David when they were saying about this counsel of Ahithophel, that go quickly, cross the water. So all of those things, I think there has something behind more meaningful, just in our own walk, water, grains, wheat, and so on. So it's good. Let's move on to the chapter 18, brother. You want to read it?
Would you like to do this chapter?
Sure.
I'll let you share the screen so you can read on your end.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me share this one here. It's not working. Let me put it here. So let's see if it's work here. Not working. Or just can you share it, Jake? I'm going to read the same version. This is the...
Okay.
It's going to be much easier. Yeah. Okay, so let's do it. It says, then David mustered the men who were with him and set over them commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds. And David sent out the army, 1/3 under the commands of Joab, 1/3 under the commands of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the command of Jai the Gittite. And the king said to the men, I myself will also go out with you. And just let me put a parenthesis here, because last week I remember I was talking about this guy, Ittai, that he wasn't a person from Israel. He was a Gentile. And I was looking into the parallel of what's happening with all of us. Maybe we are not coming from the seed of Israel. We are Gentiles. We are from the nations. And through Yahushua, we are part of Israel. And this is the perfect example. The nations, the Gentiles following the king. And even to the point here that we're reading is that he was assigned as one of the leaders, one of the commanders, in order to lead the battles. And that should speak a lot to us in order to preparation of our heart, that we have been called from Yahuwah, is that we need to take actions on what was the purpose of Yahuwah to our lives. So it says in the verse 3, but the men said, you should not go out, for if we flee, they will not care about us. If half of us die, they will not care about us. But you are worth 10,000 of us. Therefore, it is better that you send us help from the city. The king said to them, whatever seems best to you, I will do. So the king stood at the side of the gate while all the army marched out by hundreds and by thousands. And the king ordered Joab and Abishai and Ittai, deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave orders to all the commanders about Absalom. And this is something that we will see later in the chapter. It's interesting because he was very specific about how to deal with Absalom. But Joab, in this case, did something totally different. And then again, going back to what we were discussing before about this picture with the final battle, Jake, this is very interesting. It just came to my mind what is written also in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in this war scroll, that we see a big battle happening, and people of Yahuwah preparing for the battle against, in this case, the nations, in the same way that we see it here. So parallel and patterns all over the place. So let's continue. It says in the verse 6. So the army went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was fought in the forest of Ephraim. Again, an additional thing that is pushing us to think, okay, what's this final battle in the book of Revelation is about? Part of Ephraim, that maybe they are not a part of the remnant, but maybe they are in the nations, and they are deciding to stay in the nations, are going to be part of the final battle as well. And the men of Israel were defeated there by the servants of David. And the loss there was great on that day. 20,000 men. The battle spread over the face of all the country. And the forest devoured more people that day than the sword. And that was the verse that I was remembered, Jake. And this is so interesting. I don't know what's your comments on this.
It makes me wonder what was in those forests. Or what aspect of because there's something really interesting here. And when you look at the land of Israel now, and you look in the area of Ephraim, it's not as forested as, it's not some deep, dark forest like we see talked about here. So it's definitely a different land, different time. But it makes me wonder of the creatures or the beasts that were in the forest, or could it have been, the swamps, like in like the I don't know, like what would it be for the forest to devour more people than the sword? And I know it seems that Absalom gets caught up in a thick branch of the great oak, right? We're about to read through, but that's not really like killing Absalom. He just had a lot of hair and it got stuck. But what devours people in a forest? And it makes me think, just really peculiar verse there.
Actually, we were thinking the same here when I read this at home, when we read this portion. First, to your point, Jake, I am with you. If we look into the land of Israel these days, and there are not big forests. Actually, most of the forests they have currently, because they were planting the trees a few years ago, 60 years ago or more. So I'm wondering, and I think I do believe, and there's some evidence in the scriptures that they really have big forest over there. The land was totally different. I was reading a few weeks ago about this. There is a feast that is written in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's about the Feast of the Wood Offering. And this feast is 1 week or 2 weeks ago, before the Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets. And they were commanded to bring wood for the offerings in the temple. So if they needed to bring the wood, and just a matter for us to think, they have the temple, they have the tabernacle, they needed wood in order to keep the fire burning and to bring the slaughter offerings in the altar. So what it means is that in the land they had a lot of forest. My wife sometimes is telling me, they were cutting all the trees. That's why the land is like this today. But most probably they have a plan in order to keep the trees growing and so on. So most probably there was a lot of forest back then. Just keeping this logical mindset of what I'm giving as an example. But if that's the case, maybe it was so thick. And then, can you imagine if you are going by the running away, or you're going in a horse or in a mule, in this case of Absalom, that they were not taking care of what was in front of them, and multiple accidents can happen. So that's my take on this. That's why it is written that the forest devours, so kill more people than the sword. But if we look into this in the spiritual aspects, I remember there are some prophecies in the book of Ezekiel that about the plagues, and sword is a plague, famine is a plague, and so on. So those plagues are coming to kill people. So if we see this in the spiritual aspects, forest, it could be the world. We are being compared in the scripture as trees. And the world, in this case, men, women, are trees, and the forest could be totally the world. So the sword could be some problems that are coming to our lives. It could be persecution for sure. But if we are trying to hide ourselves in the forest, maybe the result is going to be even worse. And here we see the comparison, the difference, running away to the forest versus running away to the wilderness. In the case of David and the people of David, they found refuge in the wilderness, versus those people that were running from the battle. They went to the forest and they found death. So I think there's something spiritual going on over there as well that is also an example to us.
Yeah. Or, it also makes me wonder, like, were there like crazy creatures in the wilderness? Because that's one of the things mentioned in the book of Ezekiel as plagues is war, famine, and noisome beast is one of the plagues that annihilates people. And we know at this period of time there were lions and bears and possibly dinosaurs. Like there's even talk like Bel and the Dragon is a text that talks about how there was a dragon, and how throughout the scriptures that talk about how the people were to conquer the land of Israel, there's language that talks about how they were to go in and conquer it and not leave it uninhabited. So the Most High didn't drive out the people right away, so that the beasts of the land would not become too numerous to then trouble the people. So it was like there's definitely this interesting balance throughout the land of Israel, and when Joshua and them were conquering the land, of these terrible creatures that they had to have a population to stave off these beasts that were coming into the land. And anyways, so it makes me picture this whole story of these men running from David's army, and the jungle vines yanking them up into the sky, or they're falling into a marsh pit, or man, I wish somebody would make movies about this kind of stuff, because it's just so one verse.
It would be fantastic,
a crazy, it's such a twist to the whole thing. But anyways, all right, we can keep going there.
Yeah, and actually, while listening to you, I just saw two comments in the chat that are really interesting. We know that the sword is a representation of the word of Yahuwah. So the word in this case is bringing the death to the people that doesn't want to continue the path, and the trees time to time are being compared to righteous people as well. So if you are running away of the word and you are going to encounter yourself with the righteous people of Yahuwah, maybe you are going to be defeated as well. So this is also an interesting way to look at it. So let's continue in the verse 9. Verse 9. Yes. And Absalom happened to meet the servants of David. Absalom was riding on his mule, and the mule went under the thick branches of a great oak, and his head caught fast in the oak. Wow, what a way to get caught, And he was suspended between heaven and earth, while the mule that was under him went on. And a certain man saw it and told Joab, "Behold, I saw Absalom hanging in an oak." Joab said to the man who told him, What you saw him? Why then did you not strike him there to the ground? I would have been glad to give you 10 pieces of silver and a belt." But the man said to Joab, "Even if I felt in my hand the weight of 1,000 pieces of silver, I would not reach out my hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king commanded you and Abishai and Ittai, for my sake, protect the young man Absalom. On the other hand, if I had dealt treacherously against his life, and there is nothing hidden from the king, then you yourself would have stood aloof." Joab said, "I will not waste time like this with you." And he took 3 javelins in his hand and thrust them into the heart of Absalom while he was still alive in the oak. and 10 young men, Joab's armor bearers, surrounded Absalom and struck him and killed him. Wow, that's
a lot of killing of
horrible way
Absalom.
to be killed. Yeah.
Like way overdoing it there a little bit. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Could it be that there's a meaning here that he was cut by the head? And we are thinking on the Absalom as a figure as the Antichrist. He was cut by the head. Other thing that is make me wonder is about the 3 javelins in her heart, and then 10 young men killing him at the end. So 3, 10, and also being cut by the head. I don't know. I think there's something there, my brother.
Yeah. That's. I mean, it reminds me of the 10 Kings, perhaps, or. Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely some interesting numbers being used here. The 10 tribes representing the 10. It maybe perhaps Joab was trying to take away some responsibility of himself by bringing in many people to add to his killing of Absalom, because it looks like Joab straight up killed him, right?
Yeah.
And then he has 10 young men, his armor bearers, surround and strike him and kill him. So it's almost like he's kind of shifting some of the responsibility onto multiple people, even though he was the one who really kind of brought Absalom to his end.
Yeah, I was taking a look, Jake, into what is written in Genesis Bereshit. I have it here in front of me. When after the scene in the garden, it said that he should crush your head and you should crush his heel. So that was a part of what he said to the woman and to the serpent. I put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. So again, this is about this head. I'm thinking in the Antichrist, and yeah, I thought the same. What you said, is maybe the 10 kings that's going against the woman in Revelation. What about the 3 spears? Could it be somehow a representation of the 3 spirits, like frogs that we see in the Revelation as well, that are going to call the nations against the son of Elohim? And that's why we see the representation of the 3. It's a very interesting one,
It also, I guess, lends to the idea that if you're going to go into a thick forest, don't have really long hair.
True. That's totally true. Well, let's continue. Verse 16, it says, Then Joab blew the trumpet, and the troops came back from pursuing Israel, for Joab restrained them. And they took Absalom and threw him into a great pit in the forest, and raised over him a very great heap of stones. And all Israel fled, everyone to his own home.
Hold
Now
on
Absalom,
here.
yeah.
Interesting if Absalom is a parallel with the Antichrist.
It's a great pit.
And being thrown into a great pit
in the forest.
Of the Antichrist and the false prophet being the first to be thrown into Gehenna. And then, Satan is bound 1,000 years and then released at the end. But, it continues to show more of these parallels. Anyways.
And I'm wondering, Jake, and I think this is what I mentioned last week. I was inviting the people to take a look in a video of Steve Mutria that he put in his channel. I think it was 2 months ago. He was talking about the Antichrist. He was making the point that the Antichrist should come from Israel somehow. It's from the tribe of Judah, or for any of the tribes of Israel. In this case, I think he was saying that he needs to be a Jew in order for the current Jews to accept him as the Messiah. And we see exactly the same happening here. Absalom was a Jew. He was from the tribe of Judah. He was the son of the king, and he is portraying this foreshadow of the Antichrist. So we see these things for all over the place, just to have this figure and this foreshadow of the coming lawless one. So it says, and in the verse 18, now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and set up for himself the pillar that is in the king's valley. For he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. He called the pillar after his own name, and it is called Absalom's monument to this day.
Somebody in the
So-
chat
Yeah.
interestingly mentioned that in 2 Samuel 14:27, it lists that he had 3 sons, but maybe they all died.
Interesting. Haven't heard this before.
So maybe that's the situation there. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So no seed after him. Good. So you know what's coming in the coming verses is also really interesting. So let's read it about Ahimaaz and so on.
All right.
So it says in the 19, then Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said, let me run and carry news to the king that the Lord has delivered him from the hand of his enemies. And Joab said to him, you are not to carry news today. You may carry news another day, but today you shall carry no news, because the king's son is dead. Then Joab said to the Cushite, go, tell the king what you have seen. The Cushite bowed before Joab and ran. Then Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said again to Joab, come what may, let me also run after the Cushite. And Joab said, why will you run, my son, seeing that you will have no reward for the news? Come what may, he said, I will run. So he said to him, run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and outran the Cushite. You know, every time that I read this one, I wondering the entire story here, why Ahimaaz wanted so hard to be the one bringing the news. And I have no answer, Jake. I don't know if you have some insights here. The only thing that is come to my mind, to my heart, it's an analysis, you know, it's in another aspect, in another angle. It's about the desire to bring good news, the desire to bring news, and connected to the gospel, to connect it to the Great Commission of our Mashiach, is that we need to bring the good news of the kingdom to others. That's the only connection that it came to my mind, is just to have the same desire of Ahimaaz to bring the news. It's not other person. I want to be the one to bring the news. I think the only thing that, as I said, to come to my mind is that we need to have the same mindset, the same desire to bring good news, to bring news about the kingdom, about the mercy of Yahuwah. But the entire story, and I would like to hear your comments, it's very interesting. I believe that is more in the story as well.
Yeah, it is interesting that they're racing. It reminds, I know there's not maybe a prophetic connection to this, but it reminds me of the apostles in the New Testament that race. They race each other, and it says one apostle outran the other apostle.
You're right. Yes.
It's very interesting. Like, maybe it was a cultural thing, to show up the other guy by beating them to the chase, or maybe there was a desire for honor and prestige for being the one to bring the news. I don't know. It's there is something interesting about this, that it was the Cushite Joab was sending, and then of course Ahimaaz also wants to carry the news. So it's just like, what is going on here?
Yeah, he was so desperate to be the one bringing the news. It's interesting. And actually, we will continue reading now, but he is not telling all the news to the king. That's even more interesting than the whole story, because he said in the verse 24, and let's read. It says, now David was sitting between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof of the gate by the wall. And when he lifted up his eyes and looked, he saw a man running alone. The watchman called out and told the king, and the king said, if he is alone, there is news in his mouth. And he drew nearer and nearer. The watchman saw another man running, and the watchman called to the gate and said, see, another man running alone. The king said, he also brings news. The watchman said, I think the running of the first is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. So maybe, just a parenthesis, Ahimaaz used to run and bring the news. So that's why they were able even to identify him because of the style of running. This is really funny somehow.
Yeah,
And
they
the king
knew his
said,
run.
yeah, exactly. And the king said, he's a good man and comes with good news. So then Ahimaaz cried out to the king, all is well. And he bowed before the king with his face to the earth and said, blessed be the Lord, your Elohim, your God, who has delivered up the men who raised their hand against my lord the king. And the king said, is it well with the young man Absalom? And Ahimaaz answered, when Joab sent the king's servant, your servant, I saw a great commotion, but I do not know what it was. And the king said, turn aside and stand here. So he turned aside and stood still. So that was the point that I was making. He was bringing news, but he wasn't to be the one bringing the bad news to the king somehow.
Yeah. I wonder, was this a instance of him actually lying to the king? Was he telling the truth that he just saw a commotion and he just wanted to bring the good news? Or is this instance him deceiving the king? Because it says that they literally took the body and threw it in a pit and covered it in stones, and he was there with Joab. So how would he not know the truth?
Yeah.
And perhaps this is a balancing act here between the types of messages, like a message that might be some bad news that's deceptive, compared with the full truth. It just, there's an interesting balancing act here, and it makes me wonder, was Ahimaaz actually deceiving the king by not telling him the full truth? Because it reminds me of the man who refused to slay Absalom in front of Joab and was like, well, I would have given you all these shekels of silver. And he's like, well, the king's going to find out everything. He's going to know. So anyways, there's kind of a lesson here between the two types of message. Sugarcoating, is maybe a good answer for what this is depicting. But anyways,
and actually, Jake, the answer to, because David was asking this question, he was very specific about he wanted to know if Absalom was well. The question here says, is it well with the young man Absalom? And he asked the same question to the Cushite, and the Cushite didn't provide a direct answer either. So or both of them were really afraid of the king on what was going to be the reaction of the king, or they were presenting the situation not directly. They were they just selecting the words on how to communicate bad news. Because it said, in the 31, and behold, the Cushite came, and the Cushite said, good news for my lord the king, for the Lord has delivered you this day from the hand of all who rose up against you. The king said to the Cushite, is it well with the young man Absalom? So it's the same question. The only interest of David was to know what was happening with Absalom. And the Cushite answered, may the enemies of my lord the king and all who rise up against you for evil be like that young man. So he's not telling directly that he's dead. He's saying that, that all your enemies will have the same destiny. But he understood the message anyway. And the king was saying the 33 in the last one. And the king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said, oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would I had died instead of you? Oh, Absalom, my son, my son. So
even after all of the
interesting.
Things,
yeah, go ahead.
Even after it all, David still loved Absalom, and man, it just, he really didn't care that his sons sometimes were total wayward. I mean, he had a son that raped one of his daughters, and he wouldn't put him to death for that evil. He had a son that was sending armies against him and was lying and conniving, and he wouldn't want death on that son. So it just interesting quality of David.
And it shows us the heart of Yahuwah,
Oh yeah,
I think what's coming to the world and what has been going through the entire history is painful to him. It's very painful, to bringing, to this thing to the end, as it is written, it's not gonna be something easy. He feels like we feel. So, but the point is that he's also righteous. And in this case, David was moving to the emotions of his son because he wanted the best for him, as you said. But the same is going on with our Elohim.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting story,
Yeah, it's a sad end for Absalom as well, because you could see how there could have been an opportunity for him to have reconciliation with his father, and he might have even been the one David wanted to put on the throne, but because of his actions, the Most High ended his plot, and it's just very interesting.
Well, next week, we will see the continuation of the story, and I think it's also a foreshadow of something really interesting and important that is coming soon. This is my hope, and I think the hope of all of us. But we will see, David ran away to the wilderness, but now is the time for the return of the king.
Yeah.
But we will see next week.
Hey, I do have a couple trivia questions if you'd want to do that quickly, Juan, for
Let's
our
do it.
Virtual House Church family. So for those of you who would like to participate and you're watching, this is what is the giveaway for this week. I don't know if you can see. I know my green screen is kind of chopping out some of the letters, but this is
Genesis.
Genesis and the synchronized biblically endorsed extra biblical texts that Sheila has very generously offered as a prize for this week's trivia winner. So if you guys want to jump on, you have an opportunity to win this baby, first place. And so
Great.
we are going to be asking some trivia questions, a few questions from last week's study with Juan, and also some trivia questions from this week study. So it is a awesome prize, and I'll jump over here and give you guys an opportunity to join. This is how you join. Go to menti.com and enter the code 68614458, or you can use this QR code to join. So we'll give it a second. I know sometimes people, they are a little behind in terms of watching it live, but
I already see 36 hearts. That's good.
So yeah, please, if you guys would like to participate, join 68614458, and you will have a chance to win this awesome Genesis synchronized biblically endorsed extra biblical text book. And I'll give about a minute here for people to join. So I know we have 164 people watching live, and I hope you guys are not too far behind in the time of it, because sometimes I know you can get a little behind in the live. So I'll give about a minute for people to join, and then we'll do a quick run through some trivia before we wrap up Virtual House Church. So it looks like we have 48-ish people.
That's good.
Yeah,
and they still have time to join.
Yeah, still time to join. So go to menti.com and type 68614458. You can join with your computer, or you can join with your phone. So both work. If you have a phone, a modern smartphone, just take your phone out and put the camera on the QR code, and it should pull up a URL for you to join as well. So we got 10 seconds here, and then we're going to move on. There's still a chance to join. We're going to go to a little preparatory slide to get everybody involved. So there's still time, but let's go ahead and move on. The instructions are still up here at the top. Sorry that this was a. Oops, voting is closed. Oopsie. All right, so let me open this up. Okay, so you should be able to join now. And what is your I unfortunately I had to remake this quiz from last week, so it has answers from the previous question, which is why it's a little mixed up here, but you guys can still join. And all right, we have 51 people. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds. Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't refresh the answers. So my question was, what is your favorite thing about keeping Shabbat? And you can see, some people can add the new answers as, rest and reading Yah's word. And but anyways, all right. So last chance.
It's good to see. It's good to see the word salvation at the center of the screen. Big one.
Yeah, that was from I think, what does Yah mean to you was our question last week, and so that was the main answer last time we did trivia. But all right, guys, I'm going to give it 10 more seconds. If you want to join, go to menti.com and use the code 6861-4458. You have a chance. There's still time. You can get this big old workbook from Rob. Sheila's going to send that out. All right, so here we go. We're going to the first question of the trivia. Oh, uh-oh. Sorry, guys. It looks like something is going wrong with my... Could
be a computer?
Yeah, well, something is messing up with the actual quiz. It's showing the answers and the stuff.
Okay.
So let me just
try to initiate it again. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just fix this real quick. Hopefully I'll be able to get this reset for everyone.
And somebody was able to see the answer for that question, so they have an extra help.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. All right. I think I might have
to be
it
working now.
All right. So you guys go ahead and jump in there. I think I fixed it. If you were quick, or if you rewind, you're going to know what the first answer is. So you got a little help there. But remember, if you answer quickly, then you have a better shot to get more points. So, all right. Since we had a little technical difficulty there, I'm going to give it another few seconds. Looks like we have 25 people in.
Yeah. More joining.
Sorry about the technical difficulties there, guys. I really want you guys to have fun with this and be able to get a prize fairly. So all right, make sure to go to menti.com and type in code 6861-4458. All righty. All right. Yes. Still have people joining. I know we lost like a ton of people there. We had like 50 plus people already joined, and now I kicked everybody off. So I feel bad about that. All right. All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Answer fast to get more points. Where did Absalom vow to Yah if he would return him to Jerusalem? Now, this is when he was deceptive and said, I want to pay the vow at a certain location, but he said he made the vow at a different location. And this is from last week's study. Very hard question here, of course. Everybody, you got a bonus answer because I showed it just moments ago. All right. He said he made the vow at Geshur of Aram, and then he told David he wanted to go and pay the vow at Hebron. Of course, that's when he then went and made counsel against David.
Sure.
All righty. We're just kind of going to blaze through this. I'll just read the top 3 people each round. Got Daniel P. with the fastest answer, followed by Stuart and Joseph. Now we're going to go to the next question. Answer fast to get more points. What stranger stuck with King David when he was fleeing from Absalom? What person who was not an Israelite stuck with King David? Was it Ahithophel, Zadok, Zimri, or Ittai? Who was the stranger or the foreigner who stuck with King David?
We talked about him today.
Yeah, we did. And the correct answer was Ittai. Ittai was the one who was actually, because he stuck with David, put over a third of David's army. Interesting enough. Oh, it looks like Daniel P. got the answer right again. Staying in first place, coming into a pretty large lead, followed by Leek Tribe and Nick, who had the fastest answer. Let's go to our next question. Answer fast to get more points. Who did David send to combat the corrupted counsel of his former advisor in Absalom's court? Reshnar, the Bethelite, Ahithophel, Hushai, or Gittam? Who did David send to combat the corrupted counselor of Absalom? And the correct answer was Hushai. We learned that he was the one who kept Ahithophel from getting the counsel put through. All right. We see Nick jumping into first place, followed by Anna, and then Daniel P. Robert with the fastest answer. Good job.
Fastest.
All right. Question 414. Answer fast to get more points. Who cursed and threw stones at David? Who cursed and threw stones at David? Was it Banah? Was it Zeruiah? Was it Gera? Was it Abishai? Or was it Shimei? Who was the one who was saying, David, you're a bloody man, worthless man? And David's like, hey, just leave this guy. I know you want to put him to the sword for, And the correct answer was Shimei.
Yeah.
Shimei was the guy who, got in David's face and was throwing stones at him. All right, we have just 3 people in the leaderboard with the correct answer. Changing things up. Robert now moving into first place, followed by Daniel P. and James with the fastest answer. All right, let's move on. Question 5 of 14. Answer fast to get more points. What did Ahithophel tell Absalom to do to strengthen his men and become a stench to his father? He told him to kick his father out of Jerusalem. He had his father's men killed. He slept with his father's concubines, or he sent messengers to all Israel that he was the boss. What did Ahithophel tell Absalom to do to become a stench to his father? He slept with his father's concubines in front of all Israel, in fact, in a tent on top of the castle or the palace, which is reminiscent of the sins of Reuben that, we covered, and also, the shaming of your father by sleeping with his wives. So that's Robert there answering the fastest. Good job, Robert, followed by Rebecca and Daniel P. Question 6 of 14. not even halfway there, folks. You guys can still pull ahead. How many men did Ahithophel want to take after David? When he gave counsel, how many men did he say you should send after him right now? 10,000, 12,000, 5,000, or 24,000? How many men did Ahithophel counsel Absalom to take after David? No, the correct answer is 12,000 men. 12,000. And of course, that council was defeated by Hushai.
Oh.
All right. Robert with the fastest answer. We got a leader here in the leaderboards, followed by Rebecca and Daniel still. Question 7 of 14. What did Zadok and Abiathar send to warn David? Who did Zadok and Abiathar send to warn David of the plot of the bad counsel? Was it Abishai? Was it Hushai? Was it Shobab, son of Nakash? Did they send Ithra the Ishmaelite? Or did they send Jonathan and Ahimaaz? Who did Zadok and Abiathar send to warn David? It was their sons, Jonathan and Ahimaaz, and then they were hidden somewhere, which so we still have Robert here in the lead, followed by Rebecca. Robert with the fastest answer again. Good job, Robert. You're a leader on the board. Keep those answers up. You're going to win if you can pull it off. Next question. Answer fast to get more points. What was the names of David's stronghold in Second Samuel? Hold on here. Oh, wait. Yeah. So I kind of a throwback question here. What was the names of David's stronghold in 2 Samuel? Sorry, this is a question from a couple of weeks back that I didn't swap out, but hopefully you guys remember.
Oh.
So the correct answer, or two answers actually, was Zion and the city of David. It specifically calls them out as Zion and the city of David, although it was also known as Jerusalem, Jericho, or Jerusalem. In 2 Samuel chapter 4, it specifically said those two names. So sorry about that. That was an older question that I actually left in. But looks like it's going to give people a chance to catch up to Robert. He's still in the lead.
Yeah.
But let's move on to our next question here. Answer fast to get more points. Where did Jonathan and Ahimaaz hide from Absalom's servants? Did they hide in a well under grain? Did they hide in a woman's house? Did they hide in a cave? Did they hide behind the curtain of the woman? Or did they hide in a pile of hay? Where did Ahimaaz and Absalom's servants hide? It was in a well under grain. So they got in a well and then it was covered and grain was put on top of it. All right, Robert.
Wow.
The fastest answer again. Robert really wants this Genesis workbook.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Let's go on to the next question here. 5 more questions. So you guys still have a chance. How did Ahithophel die? How did Ahithophel die? Did he fall off the wall after giving bad counsel? Did David's men kill him? Or David's men killed him? Was he killed by Absalom for bad counsel? Did he hang himself? Or he had a heart attack after the king didn't follow his words? How did Ahithophel die? All right. We spent some time on that, so hopefully you guys got that one answer right. He hung himself is what the thing says, but it's possible he did, seppuku himself, like we've come to learn that Judas Iscariot likely did. All right. Question 11 of 14. Who did Absalom set over his army? Who did Absalom set over his army? Was it Ammon? Was it Joash? Was it Amorim? Was it Joab? Or was it Amasa? Who did Absalom set over his army? Now it's the correct answer was Amasa. Amasa is said in our previous study that he was the one Absalom set. And who was Amasa? He was actually an Ishmaelite. We talked about that a little bit, if you remember. Oh, okay. We have Nicholas moving into second place.
Yeah.
James still was the fastest, but Robert still keeping the lead. All right, question 12 of 14. And I remember that word. It was Assyrian. Oh, sorry. Let's read the question first. Where was the battle between David and Absalom's armies? The jungle of Jamesh, the forest of Ephraim, the forest of Issachar, the plains of Judah, or the forest of Endor? Where was the battle between David and Absalom's armies? And we learned that this place devoured more than the sword. All right. The correct answer was the forest of Ephraim. And by the way, I remembered one that I was making a correlation with Amasa being an Ishmaelite and the Antichrist being paralleled with the Assyrian.
Correct.
So that was what I was trying to think of earlier on.
I
studied the word. I was like, what is that? The word, the Assyrian.
Yeah, the Syrian.
but then, of course, it parallels also what you were talking about with Steve Moocher, talking about how the Antichrist will probably have to be a Jewish descendant to be able to be the Antichrist. So I was kind of making that correlation. Perhaps, the Assyrian could be the leader, the captain of the Antichrist army. Could that be an answer to?
That's an interesting, yeah.
All right, so let's continue on here. Robert, followed by Nicholas, and James answered that fastest. 2 more questions. Answer fast to get more points. What did Joab say he would have given the man who found Absalom if he had killed him? Did he promise him 25 pieces of silver and a horse, 10,000 pieces of silver, a garment made and made a captain? Did he promise him a gold and a sword, or did he promise him 10 pieces of silver and a belt? What did he promise the man? It was 10 pieces of silver and a belt is the correct answer. And somebody in the chat, interestingly enough, mentioned that a belt can represent authority or being promoted in the ranks. So it's not just any old belt. It could likely be a promotion, but the scripture did say 10 pieces of silver and a belt. All right, so let's see how this came out. Robert and James with the correct answer in the leaderboard. Good job, guys. Robert still with the fastest answer.
Wow.
I think this is a slide in for Robert, but we'll go ahead and ask this final question. Answer fast to get more points. Absalom did not have a son, so he did what to be remembered? He had his name carved into the palace wall. He made a pillar called Absalom's monument. He set up a pillar called the redemption of the son. He built a stack of stones and blessed it. Or he made a monument called May I Be Remembered. What did Absalom do when he didn't have a son to be remembered?
Good.
He made a pillar called Absalom's monument. All right, guys, that was the final question. And let's see here. Oh, it looks like James still got the fastest answer, but Robert pulled off the win. Congratulations, Robert, and thank you everyone for participating. We had James in second place, Nicholas, followed by Nick, Rebecca, Daniel P, Scar, Deja, Anna, and Rosalie. So thank you guys for participating. Please email me, first place winner. Please email me at simplyprodigal@gmail.com. Email me your address and your name, and we will have this shipped out to you, the Genesis Extra Biblical Synchronized Workbook Text. So before we get off here, how can the Virtual House Church family pray for you today? If you guys want to add some of your prayer requests, if you jumped off already, you can still join again and share at menti.com and use the code 68614458. But this is one of the great tools that we can add is for us to all be able to pray for each other and share the needs of the community with each other. Some people say they need prayer for healing and finding fellowship close to us for Sabbath, love for my wife, help with the bills, prayer for health, strengthening me on my leadership role. Some prayers for a trip, prayers for a relationship with their father, prayers for wisdom. I think we all could use prayers for more wisdom in this world. That my friend from China is doing well and that he will overcome the enemy. Prayer for petition I've made to our Heavenly Father through his precious Son, Yahushua. Blessings for Virtual House Church. Please pray for my struggle in following while no one around me keeps following the world. Thank you. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and just say a quick prayer. Abba Father, please meet all of the needs of the Virtual House Church family. Thank you for this fellowship. And thank you, Father. I pray that your will be done in the lives of all of those who love you and draw close to your word and have the faith of Yeshua. Father, lead us and guide us, and please give an answer to all of these requests. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jake. You know, this is true. I think everybody is liking it. I just was taking a look in the chat. I think it's a really nice way to finish the Virtual House Church. But, you know, more than that is just to see the prayer request from everybody. I think we have something to pray about. And today is more than needed that we pray for one another. So I think it's a fantastic way to finish Virtual House Church. Thank you, brother, for joining us today. It's been a fantastic study. We will continue next week. And, you know, we're going to finish as we always do with the Aaronic blessing. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I really hope that you are going to have a continuation of Shabbat, being really blessed, and for sure having a very blessed week. And I hope to see you, all of you, in the chat next week in a new Virtual House Church. Until then, Yahuwah be with you all. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Juan, I don't think the audio is coming through for the video.
Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious. lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah, make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah, lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Yahuwah te bendiga y te guarde. Yahuwah haga resplandecer su rostro en ti y tenga de ti compasión. Yahuwah alce su rostro sobre ti